Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over on the YouTube account, and as we get ready for the release of our next Awakened hero, which of course is going to be Lucius, if you caught the video, we're going to be breaking down February's tier list as it sits today. We probably have Lucius coming up this week, and then of course next week he could be up on the global server. So let's hop over and break down this tier list with all the heroes we currently have. So let's take a look at it. All right, guys, so here it is, Tier Maker. Big shout out to them. We're going to run through all of the heroes that we see in here, and you'll also notice there are a few heroes that have kind of moved up and down, so I want to break them down so you know exactly where we're looking at the Tier Maker. I'm going to go through probably the first 3 tiers that we see right here, and then pick up some other heroes that we see kind of further down the tier, starting, of course, this top with our SSS heroes. Now, when we look at the utility, Liberta is still number 1. Similar to the Awakened version of Athalia, similar to all of the heroes in here. He is best in slot in a ton of different formations. Even when it comes to summons within the Stargazer, honestly, he is probably the first one that I would summon for just because of the utility. Essentially, if you don't have him, you're going to be looking at other formations. You're going to be looking to murk him. There's a couple different things to actually get him. But again, he is probably one of the absolute best in slot heroes within AFK Arena. Then we get into Demia and Lavatoon. Now, Demia, of course, does a considerable amount of damage, especially if you do have her buffed up. But overall, giving the ability to not die within combat makes a really big difference when you look at formations, when you look at Curse Realm and the Nightmare Corridor, even looking at the Treasure Scramble, Demia is present everywhere. When you start getting into the Temple Rift, when you start getting into campaign formations, same rings true. She is being used in all of those formations. And even going through chapter 57, where I'm at right now, still using Demia very, very strong. Now, Lavatoon, of course, a buffer that replaced a couple different heroes, really itched out Rain. Rain we used to use with the Awakened version of Belinda. Now Lavatoon is in a bunch of different formations in a very, very strong buffer. Definitely a priority hero to build. So essentially, even looking at these 3, I would go for Liberta, build out Demia, build out Lavatoon, then go to Lucilla, would probably be my primary focus when I'm doing the Stargazer, and then waiting to see who is coming next. Looking at our primary 4 factions, we do have Ivan as a buffer, as a crowd controller, as a shielder. Ivan is still probably one of the most broken basic heroes within AFK Arena. We see him run in a lot of formations with Rem. We see it in there with Shamira. We see it with the Awakened version of Belinda, Athalia, a ton of different heroes. Ivan will buff and shield and guard, keeping them alive, letting them do their damage, including Liberta. Again, a lot of formations work incredibly well. Looking at the Awakened version of Athalia right here, another hero utility-wise being used everywhere, being used in the tower, being used in the campaign, Temple Rift, even looking Treasure Scramble, Curse Realm, Nightmare Corridor, still being used as one of the best in slot heroes in almost every one of those formations, making her an absolute SSS hero. When it comes to the Awakened heroes, honestly, looking at the couple we have here, early game, I would go ahead and build the Awakened version of Belinda just because the SP effect is pretty broken early game. Even having her just at Legendary will work incredibly well. As you get a little bit further, Athalia does require a build out, but again, Athalia works incredibly well. Same with Belinda. If you built either of those 2 out earlier game or the first focus, you're not going to go wrong with either of those heroes. Now looking at, of course, Rem within the Dimensional Heroes, still best in slot in a bunch of different places, still seeing a lot of pull in the PvP aspect. I shocked to see and love to see that Rem still has as much utility as she does as the best in slot hero in so many different game modes. Now the Awakened version of Laika, we've seen the same where she's done a lot of damage with the delay in the formation coming in. There's been a lot of different places. Now, of course, because of the burst damage she has, going in the Nightmare Corridor makes a really big difference in how she is built and how fast you can burn through the Nightmare Corridor. Again, it's still used in a ton of different formations, which is the same with the Awakened version of Shamira. When it comes to campaign formations, Shamira is just absolutely insane. But again, when you look best in slot Treasure Scramble teams, even used in the Curse Realm Nightmare Corridor, still has a ton of utility in there. Now, Palmer, another one of our very strong buffers. When you look at crit damage, when you look at crit damage amplification, he is the primary go-to because he can raise the damage caps on a lot of heroes. Usually run with the Awakened version of Belinda, which is pretty broken in the formation because it allows her to do a lot more damage a lot faster. And then, of course, we have Lucilla. Flexibility utility wise, this hero works incredibly well in every game mode. Even using her in a couple different places, including campaign formations. Takes a lot of damage, dies, revives, takes a lot of damage, dies, revives. It's very cool to see, almost what we've seen with the original version of Taylene. But overall, utility wise, this hero has a lot to bring the teams, and especially if she is running with Liberta, going to make a big difference. Now, getting into our SS heroes. Now, the SSS and this SS class, both of them really do fall in the primary heroes to build. Some of the heroes that fall in this SS class really support a majority of formations that we see of the higher tier. Even looking at the original, the Awakened version of Solus, still works incredibly well, still best in slot in a lot of different places. And as a support hero, keeping people alive, absolutely, Solus does incredibly well. Now, looking at Amelia with the crowd control aspect, the energy regeneration, again, that is what she is really known for. Being able to come right into PvP, stun everybody that is there, giving the ability for Rem to essentially supercharge energy, get that ult off quick, burn down in the treasure scramble, but also used in a bunch of different formations that we've seen them work incredibly well. Now, of course, the Awakened version of Sophia, again, utility-wise, used in a lot of different places. Looking at the shielding, the survivability aspect, works super well in a bunch of different places. Jerome, of course, as a very solid buffer. As we continue to see the evolution of the Awakened version of Belinda, Jerome was worked into that comp. Now we've seen Jerome actually used outside of the Lightbearer Belinda comp, so we've actually seen him used in a lot of different formations, working incredibly well. And again, to further kind of change it up, between Palmer being released and then Jerome being released and Lavatoon being released, the formations and the buffing is just going through the roof with how the damage is scaling. But then you look at like Naruko with Nadia, overall very strong damage wise, can take a lot of damage as a hero, and also provide some very solid buffs for the formations that she is in, making all around utility tank super, super effective. Then we fall into Eugene. Now, of course, Eugene, out of the current, what we have going on the current event that is going on, you can actually get another copy of Eugene out of, I believe it is the Temple Rift, which means we will be literally, I think, 2 copies at this point away from having him ascended. We have the furniture for him. We have to see the utility that we do find. Now, Gavis is another one, starting to see utility in a bunch of different game modes, even being worked into the Cursed Realm, the Nightmare Corridor. Also, of course, Treasure Scramble, very, very strong PvP-wise, but again, seeing a lot of utility with these heroes. Now, Alna is still in there. When you look at Alna, when you look at formations, still holding on to the SS category, still works incredibly well in a bunch of different places to keep the other hero alive. So you have a very high damage dealer. Like we had Alna Rem, we had Alna in Belinda, we have Alna in Shamira, bunch of different formations, works incredibly well keeping them alive. Now the Awakened version of Brutus still falls in the SS class, but I honestly think probably after the next month or two, we get a couple new heroes. He'll be taken down a tier. We could see the exact same thing down here with the Awakened version of Baden, that they might be taken down a tier just for the fact that even where Baden was used in a lot of the Cursed Realms, he's not used in all of them anymore, and it seems like he is slowly fading. And it's the same with Brutus. We're not seeing as much utility. I feel like over the next couple weeks, we could possibly see him going down a tier. Now we have Tamris in here, crowd control buffer. That's what you want to see when it comes to a hero. Buffs incredibly well with that enthusiasm buff still being used. And of course, Scarlet, single target damage. Scarlet can burst like nobody's business. Even when it comes to the Nightmare Corridor where it is timed, you want to take the target down really quick. Scarlet's in the formations because of the burst damage that she puts out. Now looking at Mortis, a very strong buffer again. Really fast, really energy heavy, but a really strong buffer. Now, when you start adding collections behind it, makes a big difference with a lot of the support heroes, not only able to buff up, but now through the collection system, we can actually have the ability to have energy pots and, restorative potions, things of that nature, which make your support heroes a lot stronger because now they're bringing an energy aspect, which again kind of changed with that collections. Now, Vathiel as a tank, as a damage dealer, pretty well. As a buffer, very, very strong. Good to see, still used in a lot of formations. Now, even looking here at Orin in the SS, it is the burst damage. So when it comes to the Nightmare Corridor, the burst damage in there is imperative. and he brings a lot. There are a couple formations where he is best in slot damage because he puts out damage so fast. Then we have Rosaline. Of course, when you look at a buffer and a follower, when you look at the awakened version of Belinda, when you look at Liberta, when you look at Chimera, Rosaline following a bunch of different targets still works incredibly well. Olgath, again, damage dealer, best in slot for a couple different teams. Trishia, not the best in slot damage, but definitely a very, very heavy support damage or a heavy mage damage, essentially within formations. Now, I know even like running her with Leica, both of them put out a very high, consistent amount of damage, but her damage is not broken through the roof, where she's the highest damage dealer by herself. It's more of carried through in the team. Tierlist, of course, the immunity, the healing, and also has the plus 20% attack rating buff. Albedo still going in there with Rem and Amelia and a couple other of the dimensional heroes, still working incredibly well. Halos is another one, support hero. As we continue to get probably another one or two support heroes, I feel like this hero is going to be dropped out. And again, a lot of these heroes, when you look at the flexibility and the utility of them, still works, again, as a very strong backup. Then we have Matria. Matria, of course, was best in slot for a while when it came to the hypos. At this point, I don't know outside of the Treasure Scramble if she's even being run with other hypo heroes, but overall, still does have utility run by herself in different formations. Nevi as a buffer and also with the minions buffer. And then Grez is still holding on for the final slot in the SS. Still seeing, again, a lot of places where it is either you have Grez or you don't have Grez and you're putting out a lot of damage or you're not putting out as much. Now, majority of these heroes as well were run within the Abyssal Expedition that we just completed. Still seeing a lot of utility with them. Getting down to the S tier. Now, these are the heroes, and you'll notice very quickly we do have Valkyrie in here, falling in the SS. Hasn't found a place yet, but we are still waiting to see exactly where Valkyrie is going to fall. And then Althos is in here as well. Again, Treasure Scramble, we're starting to see him. Starting to also see him in some of the other formations. I think it's only a matter of time. Either they're going to stick kind of in this class, or we could actually see them buffed up to that SS class just based on their abilities. But even when we start running through here and we think utility-wise, Oden, of course, used to be best in slot when it came to the Cursed Realm. That is not the case anymore. I don't even know if he's used anymore. Rain has been kind of replaced by a lot of the new buffers. We used to see the original version of Taylene run with Orthos all the time. As of right now, I believe there's one or two iterations where she's running, and she's running by herself. It's not even with Orthos anymore. Then we have Kanisa and Rook. Again, used to be best in slot for a lot of different teams. Now we're not seeing a lot of utility. Rowan, of course, support as a backup. Twins still seeing play here and there, but overall, again, utility for the Twins is still very high, but we're not seeing them used as many places. Now, Lady Simona actually came up from the B tier up to the S tier, found a place within some of the Cursed Realm and the Treasure Scramble, also found a very strong place within the Treasure Scramble running with the Awakened version of Chimera as a best in slot team. So definitely moving her up a couple tiers. Now we have Merlin in here again, utility-wise, flexibility of a hero, very strong. Joan, again, utility-wise, flexibility to fill in some of the support roles. Both Merlin and Joan, I really don't use anymore. Again, Althos, new Wilder tank, seeing a lot more utility. Mishka, again, another hero I'm not using as much. Honesta, the exact same. Short of the tower, it seems like that's where they're kind of going. Now, the Awakened version of Thane used to be, of course, best in slot Treasure Scramble, used in a couple different places, still has a lot of effectiveness, but overall, when it comes to Cursed Realm Nightmare Corridor, I don't think used anymore. And overall, within the Treasure Scramble, used in a formation, if used in a formation, even looking at the latest guide, I feel like, again, kind of falling out. Same with Mulan as a very strong filler or replacement, works incredibly well. Lorzen with the linking, Yennefer as a sub, Valkyrie still yet to be decided. Zolrath, of course, used to be best in slot PvP as well as a couple other places. Now not really used. Same with Leica, the original version of Aziz, Hodgkin, and Scrag. Again, not a ton of utility with these heroes. When you start looking at a majority of, the Cursed Realm and the Nightmare Corridor, a lot of the heroes are the SS tier and plus is what we're seeing making out those formations. These are a lot of filler heroes. Now, these are heroes also that are super, super effective when it comes to tower formations. So even though they're not seeing, again, as much play different places, they're super effective in that game mode. And then we get into the A tier, which is down here. Just want to point out a couple heroes in here. Edwin, again, best in slotted, and I think one single tier at this point. We also do have Robin Hood, which is Treasure Scramble, but that's literally the only place. Raku and, of course, Kren used to be used a lot of different places, not anymore. Some of our older buffers like Estrilda, Lucilla, unfortunately, I'm not even using Lucilla at all running through the tower right now. So unfortunately not seeing quite as much play. Even looking at Leonardo, we're seeing Leonardo in campaign formations. Don't know anywhere else that we're really seeing him. Now looking at our B tier, Crescio, of course, fell down a little bit just for the simple fact that not really seeing as much play. Used to be best in slot in a couple different formations, and as of now, not really too many. Same with Ezio. Even looking at Baden, looking at, Ainz, a couple different heroes kind of falling down. But as we get into our C, this is where Vika has stayed. So Vika, unfortunately, still kind of down in that C tier. We're not seeing a lot of play with Vika overall. So Muller Tower is where we're really seeing her. I know some players were kind of using her as a fill-in, but it was only for, I believe, one boss that was kind of filling in for the Awakened version of Leica, or one debuff that we had within the Treasure Scramble, but overall not seeing a ton of utility. And then we get into our D tier, so we actually had Leofric and Zekas, as well as Titus, join the D tier down here. So overall, guys, very, very cool to see all of the heroes we have in AFK Arena. It's kind of crazy to see the amount of heroes we have, how many we're building. And again, a couple things to remember is one, we have the Awakened version of Lucius. That is coming pretty soon. Two, we have the plus 40 signature items. So what is going to be the impact and what is going to be the change of that? And also being able to build out Eugene in his entirety to add some stars on there. We're going to have to see exactly what that looks as well on where his damage is actually scaling and where he is going to be ranking, really just based on the build. All right, guys, so that is going to do it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think about the tier list. And as always, thank you guys for watching.